Welcome to the Scaling Creative podcast. I am pumped about this topic because we just came off of our general one about social media, and today we're going to dive into our first platform, and we're starting with Facebook today because it's the number one most used social media platform. So we thought we would start with the number one, Facebook.
The Ridge.
The OG.
The O-Ridge. I like that.
How's everyone doing today, though?
Good.
Sick.
Good.
Sick.
If you can't tell by
yeah.
the way that I sound. But good.
Good, good?
Mhm.
Doing well.
All right, so let's dive in.
Yes.
do this.
Let's do
We're
it.
going to start with some statistics that I found. There are 2.375 billion monthly active users on Facebook.
Oh.
A lot.
There's a lot of
Good
people.
amount of people right there.
There are 1.49 billion daily active users.
Wow.
In the U.S., the average Facebook user is 40 and a half years old. Fewer than 10% of the U.S. users are 17 years or younger, and even fewer are 65 and older. But 65% are 35 or older. So that's kind of the general age of Facebook, is just a little, can I say a little bit older, a little bit more mature?
It's getting older and older.
It is.
More and more grandparents are getting on Facebook.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny that you say that because I remember the moment that my grandfather friended me on Facebook, and I thought, all right, I think I'm going to just stick to Instagram.
Facebook has arrived.
And that's why we'll talk about it, but that's why other platforms get young. 'Cause people just hide.
Right, because the one stat was 83% of parents on Facebook are friends with their children.
Yep.
And when we were talking about before the show, you had said that's why kids move off of certain platforms when their parents start going on.
Yeah, it's also why there's certain statistics that aren't really correct with how many active users, because a lot of kids also have multiple accounts. One
It's
is the one
true.
no one knows about. And so Snapchat and Instagram the most are the ones I think that are kind of
Yeah.
somewhat skewed of not necessarily knowing who's active and who's not. So
And I did see a lot of statistics too on how many people are actually active users. But 68% of all U.S. adults are on Facebook, and 51% of them use it multiple times a day. So I feel like when I was reading through a lot of the statistics, it seems like that was the one that people go to a lot throughout the day. That and Instagram are definitely.
and isn't it funny? 7 of 10 people in a room are on Facebook, and we hear from clients all the time, my demographic, my customer is not on social media. Oh, interesting. Got it.
Yeah, it shows you how much people
I wonder where they're getting that stats
actually
from.
know. Yeah,
Where
yeah.
are they then? Just out of curiosity. Because that's just Facebook.
Yeah,
68% of people, U.S. adults, are on Facebook.
Facebook.
Clearly, their demographics on the highway looking at their
Yeah,
billboard.
like they're
That's where
doing
they're-
nothing else.
Right.
Right.
And that's just Facebook. So what the actual percentage of people overall on social media is absurd.
It really is. And the
Super
fact and how many times a day people go to it. The other thing I thought that was really interesting was 45% of people get their news from Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah. I would agree.
And
So-
Twitter's a big place for that as well.
Twitter
But
is
yeah.
a big place, yeah,
sure.
which we'll talk about a little bit too.
And
But
Facebook knows that's also a problem right now that they're facing is it's becoming such a news source, but there's so much not correct news that, excuse me, that they're trying to figure out how to fix that problem too. Because if people are going to go there for the news, how do they make sure that what's on there is accurate? Because it's kind of hard to actually monitor that to a point, but at the same time, it's where things are going. And it's interesting to see how, if that's what you're going for, what is the source on Facebook that you're going for?
right. And I was even thinking too that I mean I don't watch news anymore. Do you guys watch the news?
I don't watch TV.
I don't watch
Yeah,
TV.
I don't watch
Yeah, I was gonna
TV.
say.
Either. If anything, Hulu. Or sometimes Netflix.
Yeah,
But
which is not CNN on Hulu.
right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. yeah, so it's so true that a lot of people are, getting their news from other sources.
We want it on demand, like everything. Like
Yeah.
that's why it's convenient. We don't have to do any extra effort to get our news. It's just on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay, so as a business and knowing some of these statistics about Facebook, what do you think are some of the things that they can take this knowledge and utilize it for their business? Like, why should people be on Facebook?
I think Scott's going to answer this really well, but my first, just want to say this right off the bat, is that why would you not go where the people are?
Ding, 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 ding.
So
What do we have for it, Johnny?
come on down. So with that being said, I'll just transfer that over to Scott.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
sure,
it's-
but that's the answer.
You could literally end the podcast with that if you really wanted to, because I mean,
true.
that's why. Like everyone's there,
Yeah.
and if everyone's there and you're not, that doesn't seem like a great business decision. Like,
Right.
period.
Right.
And then they're everywhere else too. So then it's a matter of which, as we'll dive into these couple weeks worth of podcast episodes, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is we're going to talk about Facebook, we're going to talk about Instagram, Twitter, all that. Social media as a whole, it's more of just, it's like the internet is really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because Facebook and Instagram and all those, they'll come and go, they'll change popularity. The internet's not going anywhere. And the idea of what we're talking about, of like where people are and where like attention is at, is really the premise of what we're trying to get to, is the fact that they're there. And if suddenly Facebook goes down and nobody's on it anymore, they're somewhere else.
Correct.
No one's at it. The amount of people I hear daily, they're like, I'm just tired of Facebook, but they still go to it.
Yeah.
So you're not too tired of it.
Yeah.
And if you want to know how much you spend on it, a lot of people don't even realize like the capability of your phone. If you're an iPhone user, open up your screen time app and you can see what the first thing you actually do when you unlock your phone is. I would almost guarantee, if you're listening, and we'd love to know your statistics. So
Yeah.
comment below when you open up your screen time. And I'm sure you can do it on the Android too, but I have no clue how, so Google it. But when you open up screen time, it's going to tell you how much time you've spent on every single app on your phone. My highest are always, without even close, internet-based social media type things. And I say internet-based because like I spend the most time on YouTube, but it's more that one video might be 10 minutes of that. So like
Right.
it's different. But yeah, going on there and just looking at your statistics and then look at your friends and then look at their friends and if they'll show you that, everyone, that's where everyone spends their time.
Yeah. So here's my question. Everyone is on there. A lot of businesses are on there. Is it hard to like have engagement because so many people are on Facebook? Like, how do you stand out in the crowd?
I don't think it's easy because it's noisy. But what cuts through the noise is either good content, or being different with as a business. I think it's harder and harder for businesses, which is, again, Facebook's done that intentionally so that you have to pay for reach, which we'll get into. You should. But it's harder and harder because of the fact that Facebook is stopping business organic reach extremely because of the fact that most businesses are just selling nonstop and people just hate it.
Yep.
And so there's no reason to follow a business page on Instagram if all they do is post about like specials and say, like, there's very few companies that I would say I follow on Facebook to see like what the deals are. That's not really like, maybe they'd have success with that, but I just think that because Facebook is doing everything they can to make sure that that doesn't happen by changing everything in their algorithm to not favor businesses, A, you have to pay for it, which is good. And then B, you have to figure out how can you do it better? Like, how can you actually storytell on Facebook to lead to sale? Because I think that that's the key with Facebook, is using Facebook to connect with your audience through story, through just interaction is the biggest thing. Because the amount of times you go to a Facebook page and they may even have decent content and people, they'll have 3 comments on something, but none of those 3 have responses. And you're like, you're missing, like, if you had people interested enough to even do anything, you got to acknowledge them. Because if they're even giving you as a business a comment, which is hard enough to get in the first place, the least you can do with the 3 comments you get is show back up. Instead of just being like, boom, here's a great thing, and then you disappear. It doesn't look like you actually care about the response back.
Right.
And like, Facebook tip for you, when there's interaction back and forth, Facebook likes that.
Yes.
Because they see you post something, someone interacts, and then you respond. It's showing conversation. They don't like businesses that post and disappear, post and disappear. They want people to interact with stuff. That's why they've changed their algorithm to be meaningful interactions. And meaningful interactions are either comments or they're the other things other than like. Because like a like doesn't
Heart,
take anything.
laugh, yeah.
So that's why they've added those additional things like likes and celebrates and I think LinkedIn calls them celebrate, but like claps and ha-has and all that, because it takes you an extra step to do it. So it's their way of saying, if you actually went through even a half a second more, there's probably a reason for it. So they're starting to do those little tiny behind the scenes things to say, how can we really showcase what people are doing?
Also,
Welcome to Allentown. There's the sirens right there.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that because I think that a lot of business owners, at least from what I've seen on Facebook, is they look at Facebook and other platforms as like a check mark, like a check, like a to-do list thing. Like, oh, yep, we're on Facebook and we're on Instagram and all whatever it is, but they don't look at it as like a connection tool, like that. It really is what it should be for you to your client. Like it's very like. We, like you said, we post and we're on Facebook, but then they don't interact and they don't have no engagement. And then that's where I feel like it's just not fun to follow because you're right. It's like, why would I follow a business on Facebook?
One-sided conversation.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can't look at social media as a whole as a distribution platform. It's not a distribution platform. It's a place that you should be connecting with people.
Yeah.
Right.
And which is why, we try to steer people away from like the share all and all that kind of stuff, because the more and more that you share all, the less work you're actually doing to make native stuff happen.
Yes.
But it's also just people know businesses that are like active. And people also, the amount of times I see someone retweet something or repost something on Facebook that they're all excited about because a business interacted in a funny way.
Yeah. Yes.
It's great because you're so not used to a business actually responding in the first place. When you do it comically and like funny and make yourself actually a fun brand, it does something.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think that is so important. Whenever I post something for my business or my nonprofit that's funny, it always gets way better engagement.
I think it's people taking it from selling because so many people just try to use
Yes.
social media as sales, and instead it is about being personal, and that's such a hard mental switch for so many people to get off of that. Businesses off of that selling, and that it's just about personal.
Yes. Yeah. So my biggest question, like I would ask, if you're a business, I would just ask yourself, why? Why? What are the specific business reasons that you're on Facebook? Do you want to find customers? Do you want to deepen the connection that you have with current customers? Like, what are some of the things that are your goals and your why? Because I think if you start with why, and then you can figure out the what and the how. But just dive in and start experimenting. I think one of the problems that businesses have is they want to be perfect right off the bat. They want to, have so many likes at first and so many comments and so much engagement. But dive in and start experimenting because everyone's customer base is going to be a little bit different. And something that might work for another business might not work for yours. But if you find and you search for companies that are like yours or have clients that are similar to yours, learn from them and then just try stuff. Like I think you just should try things. It's not rocket science to be good at social media, but it takes time, which is something that people like things to go really, really fast, but it does take time. And you have to experiment and figure out what works best for you. So don't be afraid to try things and it not go well. Just make note of those things.
It's also important to realize that if you're a company listening that understands Facebook and you've been doing Facebook for a while and you're starting to get frustrated with organic reach and starting to get frustrated with people not being into it, realize also that the person that followed you 5 years ago has changed.
Yeah.
And they also might have forgotten they're still following you because most people don't ever go back and unlike pages. They like it. Probably 80% of people follow some sort of business on Facebook.
Yep.
Whether they actually do anything with the business is another whole story. But understanding that if you start to see reach go down and down and down and down, part of that is obviously the way that they've changed their algorithms. So there's ways to fight against that, which we'll talk about. But also just realize that people change and you got to figure out how you can do a better job of connecting with who is actually paying attention. Look at the people that are commenting, that are interacting, and see like who what is that person? What do they look like? Not like physically, but what is that demographic? Maybe your demographic is different than you thought, and you need to start to figure out how to, get better at who really is your demographic now.
Yes.
And if you're starting to see that you're getting an older demographic, then start to think about how you're going to change that, because you don't want to just always have an older demographic that, is different than what you're hoping to grow with new people. If you're looking for new customers, you obviously need to keep getting younger,
Right.
and figuring out how you can get more customers, not just the same people.
Right. So let's say you have a business that your like customer avatar, which if you haven't done, do you guys know like what that is? Like an ideal customer avatar? That would just be really figuring out, kind of like what you said, who is your target market? Like what's his or her name? How old are they? What activities do they do? What things are they interested in? And really knowing your person or your target market. But like, let's say your target market is mostly on Instagram. Should you be using Facebook? What would you say to that?
I would say, number one, you should be using everything, I think. The answer is most people won't do everything.
Okay.
Or they'll own everything and not do anything on it.
Yeah.
I'd always rather see companies that go all in hard, at least to start on something. I don't think it's a good idea to go all in hard on only one platform, because you're kind of killing yourself if that platform doesn't exist.
Right.
But I do think it's silly to, if you don't know how to storytell correctly using Snapchat and Instagram, you should really learn it, because you're not going to have any success. And then you're just wasting time
Right.
saying, we need to post more on Instagram, but you're posting the same stuff you post on Facebook,
Yeah.
and that's not doing well.
Right.
You need to kind of be smart with that and understand, okay, if we're going to jump to a whole new demographic, who are we going to bring on board, or who on board knows actually like what that demographic is doing on that,
Right.
so that they can actually have success, instead of it just being, okay, yeah, we started a Snapchat and an Instagram, post the same thing everywhere. That's not going to work.
I would say though, to answer the question, if it's like if your ideal customer is on Instagram, you should be spending 70% of your time on posting to Instagram, but 30% of your time you should then still post to Facebook or some other platform where your other audience is, because you would have your ideal customer, but then where other is. And so it's like you kind of look at that.
And especially Instagram and Facebook. Instagram naturally, like in an age demographic, is the next phase that they go into Facebook. And I think there's also a lot of crossover, because my favorite platform is Instagram.
Same.
And I'm 34.
Yeah.
That's not what their actual target, that they're, the most common people is 18 to 24. So I'm 10 years above that.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time on Instagram and a lot of time on Facebook and a lot of time on LinkedIn, that they're also there.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
important to
right.
realize that there's crossover.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the difference between me seeing your ad and being like, that's not really relevant to me on Instagram, is okay, because there's a different demographic there. But it doesn't mean that they're also not in both places. Like all
Right.
those statistics you said are not like the 7 to 10% are on Facebook and the other 3 of 10 are on Instagram. No.
Yeah.
It means 7 to 10 are on Facebook, maybe 6 of those 10 are also on Instagram
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
And that repetitiveness is that, because oftentimes I think it is, people say they have to see something at least 3 times before they actually take action.
I think it's more than that too, but yeah,
It's something multiple
yeah.
times. So it's like, if for those crossover peoples, when you like, you'll see something on Facebook, then you'll see something on Instagram, you could see something on Twitter or something, but then that multiple times, even if you're seeing it back and forth between Facebook and Instagram a lot, because there is a lot of crossover there.
Yes.
The more times they see it, the more times they're going to be like, oh, I know that product, or I've seen that before. And you don't think of, and then you'll actually take action on it.
Right. Okay, so some of the most important things are really providing, just like really on any platform, but it's providing valuable content where you can engage with your customer, and making sure that if they're liking or if they're commenting, that you're responding to that engagement, like posting things that are funny or educate but also entertain, starting to experiment with different things. So there's all this organic reach, but then they change the algorithm, right? So can you kind of talk about the ads and the sponsored and the boosts and all that stuff? Like, should people be doing that?
Yes.
How often? Like all those questions that we get.
This is a topic that I think people don't get Facebook.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Yeah, well, and first of all, there's so many people that are just so mad the algorithm changed. They're like, I have to pay for my people to see it. You pay for ads everywhere.
Yes.
And you're mad that the free platform
Yeah.
that has cost you nothing, that has all your users, is asking for a little money to show it. No,
A little money.
Yeah, it's
A
like
little
they're
money.
free and you're mad.
Yeah.
Like so yes, organic reach is severely down, and that happens with any platform the more popular it gets.
Correct.
They realize they have to not show you everything, and so they're going to put businesses away first, and then they're going to put people that are posting garbage away second, and news and all that, and then they're going to try to use the organic reach to predict what they think you want to see. And is it always right? No. But I am shocked how many people don't realize that if you saw everything, how terribly boring the platform would be.
Yeah.
Because most people post super boring or not useful or very not valuable stuff. You don't want to see everything in Facebook.
Yeah.
So you have to pay for it. And then you have to be okay paying for it because it's just a very, very good, efficient, underpriced ad platform. But there are so many different sides of it that I think a lot of people don't even remotely get into in terms of the extent of what I hear most businesses think paid Facebook is literally just boosting a post.
Right.
And like that is the tiniest piece of what it is.
So you have boosted posts?
Yeah, a boosted post is essentially taking your thing that lives already on. So you make a post and then you boost a post. It's just a way to get more people to see what currently lives on it. Great starting point to a point. A little hack in that, though, that definitely makes a big difference is a lot of people tend to boost things that don't do well organically, thinking that, oh, we want more people to see it. But there's a reason it didn't do well organically, and it won't do well in an ad either. So you really should think a little differently in that. And as you post things, use your organic reach to be the determining factor whether or not it was actually good. Because here's the great thing about the organic reach. You can post anything you want for free 1 million times a day.
Yep.
See what does well. Then start to think about, okay, we're going to do more like that, and now we're going to pay for it to actually get more people to see it. So boosting stuff that did well organically does even better in paid because there's a reason people interacted in the first place. So that's one thing I think a lot of people don't do correctly. They tend to post something and be like, we need to pay more money, pay more money.
Yeah.
It just might have not been a very good post.
Yes.
So think about that first when you're thinking about it. Then the next side of it that starts to go crazy deep is just the actual like ad platform of actually running ads in Facebook. And the big thing about those is that ads don't show up to anyone except for the people that you actually pay to have see the ads. So the good thing about that is you can really be strategic with the targeting because you're not having to worry about the single mom seeing a post about a Father's Day event. Like, that's probably a pretty good analogy. I think I should think about it. Whatever.
That's good stuff right there.
Because that would not be a good target at all. They are not excited about their fathers or their
The Father's Day
their
stuff.
kids' fathers, whatever. Anyway, so the good thing about targets is that as soon as you start to pay for very targeted ads that only that target sees, it's very important to now think about what is the thing they're seeing. Because if I know that only a certain demographic is going to see it, then I probably should be strategic about what they're seeing. So really thinking about that a lot plays a big factor into it. And then there's targeting, and then there's retargeting, which is targeting people that have done something, whether it's people that have engaged with previous posts, whether it's running Facebook pixels, and everyone's going to start to get really confused if you're new to this Facebook thing. But retargeting is really where the magic happens in Facebook and a lot of paid platforms. It's just retargeting someone that currently did something else. It can be someone that visited your website. It can be someone that looked for something. It can be someone that previously interacted with another post. And then it can be something which, going back to the point we talked about earlier, when you know what your audience actually looks like, you can run ads against lookalike audiences where Facebook does the work for you of saying, okay, Michaela came to my page, searched 3 times, and bought something. I want you to show me more people like Michaela. And then they do their crazy magic with everything they know to determine who else does what Michaela does online. Who else goes to the same type of stuff? Who else clicks likes on the same things? They have all the data because people sell it to them. So the power is in the retargeting because you can pay to get people to see the ads, but because we see so many, it's important to produce a new retargeted message because it's a much different message when it comes to someone that you know. I use the example, like if you went into a car dealership and someone was like, hey, Scott, good to meet you today. How are you? And I'm like, good. What are you looking for today? And I say something, whatever. If I go back to that dealer and they say the same initial message, even though I already showed some engagement, it's not nearly as effective as though if I went in and they were like, hey, Scott, good to see you again. Last time you were here, I saw you looking at that Corvette. Are you still interested in that Corvette?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow, you
actually, I kind of am.
remembered. Yeah,
But if
yeah.
that same guy that I was like, oh, I recognize this guy, he's like, hey, Scott, good to meet you. What are you looking for today? I'm like,
You
I
don't remember
already
me?
got this thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's just more effectiveness.
Right.
But retargeting can be so effective because you actually know what
Yep.
they did last time to get them to see the initial thing. So creating a different message in the retarget is a big piece.
Right.
Requires more money for the creative. It requires more money for the strategy. But it's actually the thing that gets you it.
Yes.
And once you start doing a ton of it, you really can dive into the statistics of like how much is it actually costing you to get a customer? What is your actual customer acquisition? And anyone in business knows this type of thing, not necessarily in a social world, but it's the same thing. Figuring out what is it costing you in an ad platform before people, and you'd be shocked that it is unbelievably low
Yes.
if done correctly in comparison to something else
Yeah.
because you actually know who's seeing it.
And that's the thing of if it's done correctly.
Yes.
And so if you're a business or maybe you're in marketing and like all of this is super overwhelming to you and you don't even know where to start, is it a good idea? Like, what's the best thing? To have another company to come in and do this stuff for you or get consulting? What do you think?
I think, number one, it's very important to try as best you can to educate yourself because you also never know if a company's doing good for you if you don't even know. The amount of companies that are getting ripped off from social media companies because they know so little that the company that knows so little also, but knows a little bit more than you,
Yeah.
that says, we're going to charge you $10,000 a month and get you SEO this and run all these targeted ads, but like you could do all that with one click as well. You're just trusting them. I think even if you're not planning on doing it, but educating yourself a little
Yep.
with what it is that they're doing, it should be a good starting point. Then there's no right or wrong answer. If you have a great social media person, great, let them do it. If you don't, hire someone. There's a lot of our clients that have social media people that hire us to work side by side with them because there's still the ultimate variable is the creative piece you get, no matter how much you spend.
Right.
So I think it's important that if you have a person that knows Facebook unbelievably, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get good results.
Right.
Getting a good company, or if you have an internal, awesome. Getting them to create something that looks great is a big piece.
And that's the thing that looks great, which I'm going to have Mindy talk about in a second, because you can have really great content, but if there's not a great video or maybe there's not script on it, because most people watch video on social with no volume. And so you have to have your closed captions on there. Or if your page, maybe it has great content, but it doesn't look good. Like people are so visual these days.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's such an important piece that maybe Mindy, you can
it has to
speak
catch our
into.
attention.
It has to be, I think, aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like you have to produce good stuff. And if it's low res, if it looks bad, if it's pixelated, people are not going to like it as much or think you know what you're talking about.
I don't even trust you. Like
Yeah.
I will look at companies, Facebook or Instagram, and I'm like, oh goodness, you know, and it like deters me.
Right. And it's like I will like I've looked into companies and I will go to their Facebook page. It's a new company that I've never heard of, and I will look at how many followers they have. I will look at what their likes are. What are people saying about them? And if I don't see good stuff, then I'm not necessarily going to jump in and be like, I need to further check into this company that I want to use.
Right.
Because they have no credentials.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm using as my credentials. It's a part of their review. So it's like, it is important to work on those and to get that and to have that. In some aspects, I think it's the first place that people go to oftentimes before your actual website.
Correct.
It's true.
So if you don't have that looking just as good, like they will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on their website to have a beautiful, interactive, mobile-friendly, iPad-friendly, website. But if your Facebook and your socials don't back that up, you're not going to get people to go to that website.
And I think it's also important to realize that we are going to look at things
A little differently.
a little
yeah.
differently than
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
There are obviously a lot of people like us that care about aesthetics, that care about all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the people that know nothing about that, they're going to look for one thing, and that is, did this provide something to me,
Yeah. But
value
even
or
my
entertainment?
mom-
But your mom also is in that. Your
Well,
mom,
that's true.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can't. I completely agree that it should look good.
Yeah.
No one should place ads that don't.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it could look unbelievable if it doesn't provide value to someone.
Yeah.
You missed.
It can't
Yeah.
be like just one, I feel like,
Yes,
in general.
because people will sometimes if they're not in a creative field or they don't have a
Yeah.
creative eye,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily
Yeah.
going to pay. There are some videos that do well that look like crap, but they still had a certain reason that it got attention. It's more of what attention is it grabbing,
Yeah.
and is it making sense for what you're trying to do? Like if is the post adding value to people? Is it entertaining people? Is it doing something? That's the start, and then if you make it look great, now you're just upping it in a huge way.
It's true, because it's kind of like we have a friend locally that is a business owner that does lawn care in our area, and he, even though it's from a quality standpoint, it's tough to get that kind of quality on a cell phone, but he's constantly showing up on Facebook. I see him nonstop. I think we all do.
too. Oh, yeah.
And he's constantly showing up, and every single one of his videos is made on a cell phone.
Right.
And it's not to say that quality can't, you can't do things without quality, but he tends to do stuff that, maybe the audio is not the best, or maybe the shot doesn't look crazy, incredibly beautiful, but he shows up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's most important about him,
And the smart thing about him is that he is making a decision to spend a lot of money in social media,
Right.
and not letting that he doesn't have the best camera or creative yet cripple him from starting.
Right.
Because I do think as we start to do tons with him, that he'll probably see an even better reaction from things just with a quality increase. But he is getting incredible results and growing like crazy because he's spending a lot of money. He's spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month in Facebook ads.
And I'm excited to start working with him, because all we're going to do is take the fact that he's already putting a lot of money in, the fact that he's not afraid to do that, the fact that he's not afraid to put in the work to do it, and we're just going to up the quality.
Yep.
Yes.
But
He
the
built
point
the
is that it's there.
foundation.
The foundation's there.
He built
That's
the
right.
foundation, and so he got it there. He did the work, and we're just going to make it grow even more.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But he's spending the money. And that's the big thing is you have to, every company has a marketing budget. The problem is a lot of the marketing budgets are going into the wrong forms of marketing.
Right.
And so we're just so big on trying to get people to, you have to allocate some money right now into Facebook and social media in general, because it's not going to be cheap forever, because everyone's eventually going to catch up with where they're spending their ads. And when, the huge Nikes and people that spend hundreds of millions of dollars on ads on so many platforms and billboards and so many things, when they continue to see, as they are, just what a crazy good deal this stuff is, now it's not so cheap to run ads. And then there will be something else that becomes, kind of your newest underpriced attention. But you have 2 to 3 years from now to get great effectiveness out of, and we're just talking about Facebook for now. Everything else, it's hard to say yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Facebook is very mature, but still underpriced.
Yep.
Google AdSense was really cheap, still very effective, but now much more expensive because everything catches up. Facebook's going to be that way too. The thing that costs you $10 right now to get a couple thousand eyeballs is going to get you nothing. You're going to have to spend $100 for that. And then people are going to use the excuse, Facebook ads are too expensive. You never ran them when they were cheap. So how many more times are you going to make excuses? Run them now.
Right.
There's
Run 'em now.
nothing that is going to, I don't care what quality you put out. Running something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But if you can make it look good,
Yeah.
obviously, that would be a good start.
Right.
But spend some money on it. The amount of people that spend $10 on something or $100 on Facebook and they spend $10,000 on a TV commercial and they're like, we just don't see the same response from Facebook. You're not even spending close to
spending
it.
any money, yeah.
Because I could guarantee if you right now are listening to this and you have a $2,000 billboard out, or let's just say radio ad or whatever, I could guarantee you with everything that I know that if you spent the exact same amount of money that you're spending on any other form of advertising other than social, on social, you would be blown away by the actual difference in results. And here's the great thing about Facebook. You can actually see them.
Yes.
Right.
That's the other thing. People don't realize you can't see who's actually seeing your other things. They're selling you on the statistics of, TV commercials.
Yeah.
26 million people watch TV, not your commercials. Or like not your billboards, not your radio ads, like they're so you can see statistics.
Yeah.
And you can run organic for free, see what does well, then pay for it. If that does well, run 5 simultaneously that are $100 a piece. Whatever one does well, make that one $1,000 a piece.
Right.
If you have bigger budget than that, make the one that does well at $1,000 be $10,000. It's just you can just try things, and it's amazing.
It is amazing. And the thing is, you need to let Facebook breathe. Like, put money in, and it's not a gumball machine. Like, it doesn't just come out. Like, it's more of like almost like a stock or something. Like where you put money in, and it builds over time. I think people are very not patient.
Oh yeah, they run $100 ad, and they're like, okay, we didn't get anything from it.
the next
not working.
day.
It's not working. We're done. We're done with it. We're not going to spend money anymore.
Right.
That's why you have to experiment and figure out, like you said, maybe you can put money into a bunch of different little things.
Right.
Like you said, see what your people react to, and do more of that, put more money into that one, and then do more of those things.
I think it's good to have one ad that is continuously running, that is just an overall brand.
Okay.
Have a bunch of ads that are more targeted, and then a bunch more that are retargeted, and let them all just run in a nonstop funnel. And that's essentially what our friend that's doing is just you see him nonstop, but you don't see the same message all the time. So he's great with that.
Right.
He's running just tons of different videos.
Yep.
So that when you keep seeing him, it's not always just one thing. He has some comical ones that are super funny, that are not quality at all, but they're entertaining.
Yep.
So he does well on them. And that's the big piece is it's just you got to spend money on them. You got to be okay realizing you need to spend money, and it's cheap.
The mentality anything needs to shift, because I think a lot, like us humans, we need oxygen to breathe, but I feel like businesses nowadays, like, you need to be on social media. It's like your oxygen now. And you need to invest in that. And you need to have it constantly in your system so that it can work. Because people are trying to think like, oh, well, I can get away without it.
Yep.
You have to show up.
You have to show up, and it's not the way that it's moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you only have so much time.
Well,
Right.
I think, any other closing thoughts? Anybody else want to?
No, that was good.
No?
Felt
It's
really
a lot
good.
to think about. But
Yeah, it is a lot. So here's the thing. An overwhelmed mind does nothing.
Right.
So what I love about what we talked about was we talked about things in different layers.
Right.
So start with the first one and go there, and then kind of, make your way. So I love any time that I'm learning anything, writing a lot of things down, and then kind of figuring out, okay, what's the one thing that I'm going to start with,
Right.
and just focus on that.
Yeah.
That's, like,
And we just love interacting and talking to people and just educating any way that we can. So, I mean, if you're this is not a sales pitch. If you're a business listening to this and you want to dive deeper into some of these, like, let's talk about it.
Yep.
We don't even have to sell you our services. Like, we just we produce this podcast to add value, and we love we want people to be educated. I talked with someone yesterday that was they already are using a company that's doing their ad spend, and they're like, am I getting a deal? And I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we want to educate people so that you are not getting ripped off.
Right.
And then if in that midst you decide that we make more sense, great.
Yeah.
But I want you to be educated, because people are getting ripped off, and it's not, and it's really not fair at all that they shouldn't spend money to get things that these companies are doing in one click. So
Look at the credentials.
Yeah.
Look
but
at
comment
those
below. We'd
credentials.
love to hear, are you running ad spend right now? If you want to share how much you're running, awesome. But I just love hearing there's so many different businesses and people to listen to this.
Yes.
And so many people that have been saying they want to do things for the last year. And hopefully this inspires someone to be like, you know what? Enough is enough.
Yeah, so comment
Tackle
below. Let us know if you want to share it on, I always love to share the podcast that I'm learning from just on Instagram or, wherever I'm at. So feel free to share, but we want to continue the conversation. So like Scott said, feel free to comment. So
And in next episode, we are going to talk about Instagram.
yes.
Yay.
My favorite, can you tell?
All the 30-year-olds are all and Pablo. the
And Pablo.
And Pablo.
But no, this is a platform you better be paying attention to.
That's it.
And we're going to talk all about it in next episode. So make sure you subscribe.
Yeah.
Hit that bell.
All the things.
Do all the things.
Yep, do it.
Do all the things.